For too long, we've had energy that has been affordable, reliable, but not sustainable. So there is extreme pressure coming from society at large that is demanding that we have energy that is affordable, reliable, and sustainable.
The urgency of the energy transition is really connected to a changing climate and carbon pollution in the air and the waterways. Because energy plays such an important role in our day-to-day lives, we want to make sure that we deal with it in a way that impacts everyone as positively as possible.
The more diverse that this energy portfolio is in terms of our supply and our usage, the more robust and more resilient it'll be.
The Gulf is a tremendous leader as it stands in energy production and is ground zero for a lot of the effects around climate. So it's a natural place to spur the growth of renewable energy. It can be a tremendous leader in the renewable space as we move forward.
The Navigating the Energy Transition in the Gulf of Mexico workshop is really about getting people from disparate groups, bringing them together into the same room to have some cross-pollination of ideas, specifically about what the future is going to look like and what can we do today to help shape that future.
We really hope to make a difference in how the region is prepared and positioned as this energy transition takes place. We want to think about, how do we understand this? Are there risks that we need to think about? How do we get prepared and respond? How do we include new voices? And how do we leverage funds and resources?
We really wanted to bring together our four main stakeholder groups: the academia and technical group, the governance group, the community stakeholders, and then the industry representatives as well.
I come from an oil and gas family, but I also have witnessed firsthand through Hurricane Harvey the devastating impact and wealth eradication that comes from large storms that are created through climate change. So there's a real wake-up call that says, I can be a part of this change.
I wanted to participate in this workshop to make sure that the voices of the communities that are most vulnerable historically and systemically is brought forward in the process.
We really wanted this group of participants in this workshop to share their perspectives with other stakeholders that may open the eyes of the other stakeholders to issues that they may never have thought of.
We have some pretty robust national goals, so we need to understand what the road is to get us to those goals.
The first scenario, the path to net zero, is assuming that the U.S. achieves the current administration's goal of 100% clean energy by 2035 and net zero emissions by 2050. We asked the players to identify what we call impacts. What are the things that happened that made 2050 the way it was?
One of the impacts that became a point of discussion was the population centers and what's going to happen to the people in these areas as we shift towards renewables.
40% of that economy along the Gulf Coast is dominated by the energy landscape today. You debilitate that industry, and it's going to have huge consequences on the way of life along the Gulf Coast.
As we transition from oil and gas, we're not just eliminating all the risks, we're introducing new and different kinds of risks that have to be effectively managed. I think the opportunity for the Gulf is really significant, whether it's in offshore wind development, the ability for shipyards to become builders of the infrastructure and the vessels that support offshore wind, the development of new technologies for offshore energy generation, the opportunity to leverage that existing infrastructure and experience that we have puts the region ahead of many other areas. So I think the Gulf has a chance to lead in this area.
People at the very local level have to see the economic benefit of renewable energy, because until that happens, we're going to get the same kind of brick walls at the local level, no matter how great the policies are at the state or federal level. Any kind of transition represents an opportunity to make sure that the people who are living near these energy hubs are receiving their fair share of the economic benefits.
The second scenario that we'll be looking at is called Steadying the Transition. This scenario presents a future without sustained aggressive governmental support in favor of the transition away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energies.
It was very difficult for me to describe how we might impact a bad scenario in a better way, particularly when you start to unravel the cascading impacts around taking that approach.
There are some early stage interventions that don't require massive federal influence, but can be community driven.
I was surprised by the focus on carbon capture as a given. From the perspective of communities in Louisiana, there's a lot of concern about that technology. There's a lot of concern about where those storage wells are being placed and about the potential risks that could come out of that, as well as the fact that it's not addressing the root cause of the problem.
I've seen more cross-pollination than I've expected. We've seen a lot of conversation between different groups of people, respectful disagreements as well.
There's a gentleman that's talking about pipeline transition and transporting the renewable fuels, and someone like myself says, well, these pipelines have to go through the community, so how can we make them more aware that these pipelines exist?
One of the areas I have a lot of desire to learn more about is environmental justice. There were participants in the room that heightened my awareness, gave me resources to think about, new connections to have conversations with, so that I can be an ally for this.
Perhaps the biggest lesson for me is the impacts to the communities along the Gulf Coast. You could end up becoming the Silicon Valley for the energy transition. It is going to take everybody pitching in.
There is no silver bullet. The way forward for the energy transition for the Gulf and for our nation is going to be all stakeholder groups working together, enabling this energy transition.
I'm hopeful that the Gulf will lead. We have a huge opportunity right now to make those decisions towards 2050.
We are helping to engender and catalyze new relationships, new partnerships, new networks of connection, so we all continue to work together and move the whole region and the country forward.